dash is quite possibly the most elegant piece of punctuation there is. So today I wanted to tell you more about the dash, which is definitely my favourite piece of punctuation. It's normal for people to have favourite pieces of punctuation, isn't it? I particularly like this piece of punctuation because it's so versatile and so quirky. So just to introduce myself, my name is Ruby and I am an English literature student. This is my first video for the StudyTube project, which I am so excited to be a part of, and we're really hoping that this is going to be a really useful, helpful, supportive platform for you during this really hard time. So with that said, let's think about the dash.
So of course the first big question is, what actually is a dash?
So there are two types of dash, and which one of these you use is just stylistic preference. There is the M dash and the N dash. So named because the length of each is directly linked to how long the letters M and N are on a typewriter. So an M dash is longer than an N dash, and personally I think the M dash is a lot better. A dash is not a hyphen.
A hyphen is a little symbol which is used to join two words together to show that they are connected in the meaning of the sentence, as you can see in the word pick me up. And here are a few other examples. You can also see some examples in John Keats's Ode to a Nightingale.
A hyphen is easy to use. It has a clear meaning. A dash, not so much. In fact, the dash is known for its ambiguity. It can be used for a multitude of different things. It can replace other pieces of punctuation, and it's really striking on the page, so it has this kind of wow factor to it.
And now that we know what a dash is, what can a dash actually be used for?
It can indicate a pause. It forces a reader to pause for a moment and reflect on what they have just read, knowing full well that what they're about to read links to what they've just read. It can be used to link two things together. I mean, consider the very way a dash looks on the page. It physically connects two words, two clauses together. Visually, it acts as a sort of bridge, whereas other pieces of punctuation create a kind of barrier, like an exclamation point or a colon or even a full stop. The thing I like about a dash is there's something quite oxymoronic to it, because you've got this bridge connecting two things together, but there's also a gap. It's not just a pause, there is substance within that pause. Similarly, it can replace a colon, so it can indicate the beginning of a list or show that something is equivalent to that which has just been said. There is also the parenthetical dash, which is one of the most common ways of using a dash, and this is where you use the dash in the place of brackets or parenthetical commas. When something is in parentheses, it means that it's not essential to the body of the sentence. So the dash shows that even though it's not essential to the sentence, it is definitely still important in the sentence. The dashes almost act like arrows pointing towards this thing that sits in the middle and saying, no, you do not want to forget about this. It can also show an interruption of thought. What was that? So the poet who really epitomises the dash is, of course, Emily Dickinson, who used the dash in the majority of her poems, really. Dickinson used the dash in new and strange ways, and she didn't use it in the same way every single time, which makes reading her poems really cool because you don't entirely know what the dash is being used for. Funnily enough, when her poems were first published, the editors decided to change some of these dashes into colons and semicolons and full stops because they thought that the dashes were too jarring and disjointed, and of course that's what makes Dickinson's poetry so wonderful. But thankfully most editors today will say that the dash is integral to reading Dickinson. So I would go one step further though and say that you need to read Dickinson's poems in their original manuscripts in order to really appreciate her dash. She doesn't just use the dash in different ways, but she uses different kinds of dash, more than just the M and the N dash, which we spoke about earlier. She plays around with the length, with the angle, with the pressure with which she presses her pencil. And so her poems gain visual art form as well as poetic art form. Obviously this video was mainly just to outline the ways that the dash can be used, but it seemed criminal to talk about the dash and not refer you to Emily Dickinson. So I'm going to leave some resources down below. I would really recommend looking into some of Dickinson's poetry and particularly thinking about how she uses her dash to express thought or fragment thought and disjoint thought. The original manuscripts of Emily Dickinson are actually all available on some digital archives, which I will leave linked down below. It's really easy to navigate. You can look for any poem on there and you can look at the front and back of the document where she wrote it. And I'd really encourage you to think about the angle of the dash, the length of the dash, the thickness of the dash, and how it thus operates within the poem. I've read critics before who call it a musical note, and I just love that idea because it kind of acts as a word in itself. I'm also going to link this mini coffee table book down below. It's her envelope poems, and it's got some fragmented little poems of Emily Dickinson's, and if you are a big fan of Emily Dickinson and you want to think more about her handwritten work, then this is a really great thing to try. So I hope that you enjoyed this very, very quick introduction to the dash. There is so much more to say about it, and particularly about Emily Dickinson, but I wanted to condense this down. Unfortunately, I feel like the dash is very underrepresented. People don't always know what the dash is, they've never really been taught about it. If you haven't heard about the dash before, I hope that this encourages you to start using it in your work and to have a think about how it plays a part in pieces of literature that you read. So thank you so much for watching today's video on the StudyTube project, and remember that tomorrow at 6 p.m. there will be a new video from someone else teaching something new and cool and interesting. But yes, I hope that you enjoyed this little mini lesson on the dash, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Okay, bye!